Employees pushing back on AI implementation or adoption in your company isn't a problem, it's an opportunity. In today's episode, you'll learn how to work with anti-AI employees and how to address some of the issues they're bringing up, including hallucinations, fear of job loss, sustainability, and others. We discuss the impact to your business and how to move forward. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the AI Accelerator for Business show, where we get the latest strategies, tactics, and information about the business benefits of artificial intelligence. My name is Carl Ye. I'm always joined by my co-host, Jeff Bradshaw. And today we're talking about how to deal in your business with employees who are anti-AI. And I think this stemmed from a discovery session we did last week, where there was a group that was very, very anti-AI. And there's a lot of different things that happened, and maybe just to set the context. So our discovery, we meet with each department, gather feedback in terms of processes, repetitive, data-driven, predictive tasks. Really just want to understand all the different manual tasks, repetitive work that the department does. We try not to talk too much about AI, more so about what they do. Now, this group was very, very against AI, brought in an MIT report saying that it reduces critical thinking, had very high hallucination rates, 40%, which I don't even know where they got that, because it's like, what model did you use? What task was it? Did it use grounded data, not grounded? Like, how was it measured? So just random numbers came up. And then it also impacted, like, you could see that the leader was anti-AI, there was another employee anti-AI, and it just kind of fed into the other team members too, who didn't seem that anti, but had to obviously go along with the group too. So yeah, Jeff, I'd love to know like what your take on the situation was too.
Well, Carl, I think that session was interesting, but I mean, we run into this in just about every session that we do, discovery sessions. There's always a couple of people, a few people that are like hardcore anti-AI. There's a lot that are questionable and don't understand it, and I think that's they're more curious than anything. But I think it's something that companies need to be aware of, and I think it's something that needs to be dealt with because the fact of the matter is that AI is here to stay. It's not going away. It's like a business process that you're going to have to start incorporating. And I think you got to be careful of getting people that um, can be cancers within an organization or really kill any implementation and start to put question in other people's minds, which isn't necessarily 100%. But then again, it's okay that people are questioning it, and you talked about that as well, is that it's okay to have those that are going to question it, not just all naysayers and, hey, let's go for it, but to a degree.
For us, the way we handle it is we want to hear all the objections, right? And at the beginning of the session, we always go, we want to know your stance on AI because it's important to understand that. And you're right, you can't have a whole bunch of people just overhyping the thing because nothing
That's
will get.
dangerous.
That is danger on its own because, for security reasons, just leaving people behind and so on. But I think like you have to have that critical thought. But what's really interesting is whenever we mentioned anything, or not even us, other people were mentioning that they were using, it was like an immediate trigger of don't trust it. Like, yes, it hallucinates. Um, it's going to reduce critical thinking or something like that. I think employees are already, they're being bombarded with information. You better have AI skills to remain employable. If you don't do this, you're going to be left behind. But just most people are just like, hey, I just want to try to get my job done. Like,
What
right?
but I think it's and I think I can see where some of the skepticism comes from because you do hear about it, and the fact of the matter is there is a real, like, let's be honest here, there is a chance that AI is going to replace some jobs and reduce headcounts in certain organizations. That is the reality, and so I think we have to be aware of that. But I also think that, our belief is that, and we don't have to totally, you know, we don't have to agree after our conversations, but I think it's a matter of, I think, being open on both sides. I think, because this comes into the change management. We always talk about the fact that the biggest challenge with AI is not the tech, really, it's more about the change management. So how do you get people on board? And the one interesting comment, we've heard this a couple of times, where somebody said, well, I believe that AI is just going to give me the tools so that I can do more work and the company's going to make more money, but it doesn't really save me because if I become 20% more efficient, I'll get 30% more work. So again, that's where some of these people are coming from. And, so executives need to be aware of these concerns and validate them and hear people out.
Yeah, and I think that's important to get people to say these things because I think even if you we've run to CEOs who, hey, we're gonna do this and we're just gonna implement without having the conversations with their frontline staff, regardless of if they are anti AI or full pro AI, does the AI actually help them do their jobs? And those are legitimate things. It's like, have you just implemented a solution and trying to find a problem that you're trying to solve with it? Or are you actually thoughtfully deploying it, but having gone through talking with your front lines, like, hey, this is our process. AI can help the 10 to 40% we always talk about, make you more productive, make you more efficient. And it's not about I'm going to be more 20% more productive so the company makes more money. There's that element of it. But do you really want to be doing the 20, 40% of repetitive work that you trudge through and do not like and prevents you from actually doing the stuff that you want to do? And I think that's the other message around it.
Well, and I think it's and you're right, and I mean, I think people need to adapt because again, there's lots of analogies we use, but I mean, the one being is that if you didn't like the internet and thought the internet was gonna, ruin the world and everything else, are you gonna survive in a position in a company where you still wanna rely on snail mail because you don't wanna use email? Like, is that kind of the view? And that's what we find with AI is that some people are just putting up this resistance of I'm not going to use it, because I don't like it. But the problem is that you run a real risk that if somebody comes along who is using it and can be more efficient, how secure is your job? Because what my belief is that these companies need to become more efficient in order to stay competitive. Because if you've got a manufacturing company and you're not using any new technology and you've got a competitor that is, they're going to become more efficient. They're going to have, more room in their margins and they're going to be able to outperform you. You may not be in business if you don't accept the new technology. So that's where employees need to come along as well to go, I'm better off to, our belief is that you're better off to learn it and figure out where to use it, even though you may not love it, but it's kind of part of a, job description going forward.
The other thing that we often mention too is it's not necessarily your competitor that's going to start using it more. It's those AI native companies that do not have to deal with any of this, right? They do not have anti AI people. They do not need change management. They don't need integrating tools into process. They already have all the advantages. So that's the type of company you're competing against, which means like, are you really that good at your job? Can you beat something that can do 10x, 100x the manual stuff that you already hate doing, but maybe you're good at it? Can you beat an AI that can do it better and faster? But you forget that it's still trudge manual work that you don't like anyway. So why even engage in something like that?
But
Um,
I was just gonna say too, but like that's the thing, and it's the fear factor because before a couple of years ago, I don't think the term UBI, Universal Basic Income, was hardly ever brought up. And it has been brought up because people are concerned when you talk about AI run organizations. So what does, and we always talk about it too. I mean, when we go into a client and we go into, working with them on an AI integration plan, we do not come in going, okay, the first thing is let's figure out how to cut your headcount. That's the last thing on our mind. Our focus is on how can we make your current team more efficient so that you can do, you can get to the thinking tasks rather than getting stuck on the repetitive tasks. And we are, always talk about the fact that most employees are reactive day to day. They never have a chance to be proactive because they're too busy doing all that repetitive tasks. So our goal is like, how can we take that off your plate so you can get to the thinking tasks, and how can you do more with the existing team that you have? It's never about headcount, and I think but I think companies have to be responsible as well, because if we laid everybody off and nobody had jobs, so we've got a bigger societal problem if we're not able to employ people and give people a source of income.
the other thing that we mentioned too is we talk about if you hire an employee, $100,000 benefits and so on. Well, what if you take that 100,000 and train up 25, 30 people in your company, just make them 20% better at AI, right? Give them all the advanced tools, give them continuous training. They would probably be more efficient, more productive as a whole with greater impact in your organization than you hiring one more person who you have to train and everything there. So again, it's not about reducing headcount. It's like, hey, we've got a great team. You hired these people, you trained them up. Why not train them even more to increase their capabilities and and do things that your company has never even thought of or never had time to, because we've seen this over and over. How many discovery presentations we just hear, you're like, That is one of the tasks that a person has to do." And they have no choice because it's just how the process happens, right? They just, I have to manually copy this. My favorite example is I use a tool, I export it into Excel, do the work in Excel, and import it into another tool. Doesn't make any sense to have two tools that you export to Excel and put it back, but that's a lot of work. So imagine if you don't have to do any of that and you
Yeah.
can actually do the stuff that you want to do, not manually putting in stuff into spreadsheets and export and import.
Yeah. So if you take a look at it, to me, I think there's really four things that we get feedback on or pushback on from people. One is it's going to replace me. It's going to replace my job. The second is it's hallucinates, so you can't trust it. The third is the environmental impact. We generally get that question of it uses a ton of energy because I saw a news report and it uses a ton of energy and it's not great for the environment. And then the fourth one would be my mind slip. What was it? So hallucinations, environment. Oh, copyright. It steals information. We've had a few artists in on these meetings where they're saying, "Well, I'm a writer, and or I'm a voiceover artist, or something, and it steals And I don't know. I mean, so the first one, we kind of talk about job loss. The second one, hallucinations. I mean, talk about that, Carl, because even the report that the one individual brought in that talked about a 40% hallucination rate, that report was from March 2025. It was from a year ago. And I mean, I think there's been a history of hallucinations, and AI can absolutely hallucinate, but there are ways around it based on how you prompt it, asking for verification, citing your sources.
And I think this is where even the skill level of using AI, right? So we've heard, "Oh, I tried AI and it gave me incorrect information." I was like, "Okay, what did you do? What was your prompt? Did you ask it to cite its sources? Were you using just base like free models? Were you using a paid model? Like, what was the task you were doing it on, right?" And you used it once or twice. When did you use it? Did you use it last year, 2 years ago, and then that's it? I think the and it's hard, I get it, because the speed of progress is so ridiculous that we even talk things that you couldn't do 3 months ago could be done now. Like, even some of the things like Claude Cowork, Claude Code, OpenClaw, like, the things that people can do and get AI to actually take action on has actually never been available, I would say same time last year. So,
Yeah.
and that's the hard thing with hallucinations too. But we also have to think, and all the AI labs have said this, it's not really a detriment, it's actually a feature because yes, for more accurate numbers, you want it to be more accurate, but also for creative writing and being able to come up with ideas, that's where you also want it. You don't want a definitive answer every single time. You want it to have that flexibility too. So there's those kind of things. But some of the ways that you can easily knock off hallucinations, like ask it to cite its sources. Make sure for you to check it, right? What are the things that you're asking for it? You Unfortunately, you may have to use the more latest models, which has a lower hallucination rate than some of the older models. It's just part of it. And then also the information that you're providing it, is your prompt just, "Hey, I want you to analyze this spreadsheet and do this?" Well, it's like there's too many things related to it. So
But I think with that too, I mean, when people say that, people are insinuating that humans don't make errors. Humans
that's
don't
true.
hallucinate. And we always, talk about that is that, somebody will say, well, I'm dealing with, numbers and I've got to make sure it's 100% accurate. And they show this massive spreadsheet. And I'm like, how do you know there's not a formula wrong in that spreadsheet? Well, I checked it. I don't buy that. And the other thing we always say with a lot of people with AI is that it's got to have a human oversight. You would be
Yep.
an idiot to
Yeah.
create a report and run it and hand it off without going over it. But What that means is that if AI can get you 40% of the way there, 60%, maybe 80% of the way there, that's better off than starting at zero. And then you should be spending your time reviewing it, double checking, making sure everything calculates, and then you can put your stamp of approval on it and move it on through the process. So I don't know. I don't buy that, it hallucinates, so I'm not going to use it because, again, we've seen way more errors with humans that are either lazy or just dealing with a ton of information and miss things. So,
It was a very funny comment too, because one person said, "Okay, if you ever make an error in any of your work, we won't use you." Right? That was like, okay, that is the new deal. So if you no errors at all, then we won't use it. It's like, well, it's kind of built in, right? And every single story that we've heard in the past about like AI going wrong, it's because there was no final human error, right? The 440,000 from Deloitte. Guess what? Lack of oversight, didn't catch it. The lawyer who using bogus cases to the judge, guess what? The lawyer said, I didn't I was too busy
verify.
doing one thing, I didn't see it." So, it would be crazy for you to do something like that, but that's the ways to knock that off.
Well, even in our business, I mean, we do AI strategies for companies, and absolutely, we use the technology to the nth degree to come up with these strategies, but we do not release anything out unless somebody in our team has reviewed it from top to bottom and
Yeah,
making sure that things make sense and things are accurate.
yeah,
We'd be idiots if we didn't do that. So,
yeah,
um, what about the environmental one? Because again, we do get that, and I think I've even heard that from my daughter and other people that I hear that AI is consuming so much energy that it's going to ruin the environment. My my take on that is it twofold. A, I believe that the AI technology is going to be able to help us advance environmental um, concerns and be able to help us figure out how to take better care of the environment, even though there is mass consumption. But I don't know. It all depends on which news network you listen to or which news story you read. You're getting different perspectives
yeah.
on it.
And you get there's so many different studies, right? Because some people get it wrong. Some people have like millimeter. Oh, it wasn't actually millimeter, it was a liter or vice versa. And then there's reports out by Google saying it's like less than a teaspoon. Then people say, hey, a golfing tournament is more um, doing like hosting or actually having a golf course consumes more water than running an AI model. So which is which? I think the big concern too, which is rightfully so, is the amount of data centers that are being required, and the need for water to obviously cool, and which is, hey, you know what? If you want to cool something, come to Alberta because come to Canada. We cool like 6 months of the year. It's not that warm. But then you also have like how much water is it going to consume, and does it impact the communities around those data centers too? And so there are legitimate environmental concerns that you have to think about, but at the same time you got to be very careful of the report. And it is kind of up in the air right now too, right? It's the use of it depending on report, but also the mass data centers that are being built as well. So it's a tough one to give like a definitive answer because in the end we don't know.
Well, and I think, and that's the thing about it is, so I think it is a valid concern, and I have no problem talking to people about it. And in all honesty, I don't have the answers, but it is something we need to be aware of. I guess when I take a look at it, is if you're that worried about it, it kind of goes back to the old analogy, and this isn't a good argument, trust me, but then don't drive your car, don't build your house. There's so many other ways that we're consuming. Don't fly across the country. Um, if you're that concerned about don't eat your food because agriculture is a huge impact on the environment. And I think that AI is another one that we absolutely have to be aware of this topic and we have to approach it cautiously. But at least with AI, I feel like there will be some upsides to using the AI technology to help figure out how we can be more efficient with our energy consumption, not only for AI, but for the energy industry, for oil and gas companies, for agriculture, for mining, for food production, all of that. That would be my goal, is that at least out of all of those ones that are big energy consumers, AI is probably the only one that's going to truly help us figure out better ways of doing these things to help save the environment, because it is a big concern. So we don't push that off to the side. I know it's a real concern, but
Okay.
now how about the copyright one and the stealing information and everything? Because this is one that both you and I are video producers, we're content creators. I was in the video space for 30 plus years. We get a lot of feedback from people who are creators saying, well, it's stealing voices and it's stealing images and it's training on data and everything else. But I don't know.
So here's my thought on that. If you put your content on any platform that you don't pay for, I think we've always said, if you don't pay for anything, you are the product. And guess what? You're the product. You put your stuff on YouTube, it's not owned by you. It's whoever it's Google. If you put your stuff on Facebook, Instagram, guess what? Owned by Meta. Like it's just is. So unfortunately, they have every right to train on the data, on the content that you put on their platform.
On the free
Now,
models. Yeah.
on the free, now, what I don't agree with is some of the models who didn't, whether it's they took it or not, they didn't compensate some of the artists that they took from, right? So the case that Anthropic lost in terms of they had to pay $1 billion, I think it's $1 billion to a lot of the authors, because what they did was they actually pirated some books, I believe, and then trained it off the pirate. I was like, that stuff that should not have happened because those people put lifetime work into it. Now, that said, unfortunately, this is where we are and this is where it's at. And yes, it's unfortunate. And yes, they should be making licensing deals to, they're making money. Artists should be making money. They should be well compensated. But I think we should be looking forward, not trying to rehash, hey, they stole my stuff, we didn't use it. It's like, well, guess what? A whole bunch of companies are using it. And whether you don't like it or not, they're going to continue using it. So you might as well, how can you leverage both AI for your and combine it with your art rather than trying to fight something that people are just going to be using?
No, and is it right? Absolutely not. I mean, if you've got content creators and their information is their works are being, blatantly ripped off, they 100% should be compensated. No doubt about it. But I think again, just digging your heels in and just being an anti-AI person because of that, I'm going again. You can do that, but I don't know how that'll pay off in the long run. It's a matter of how can you look at the technology and figure out how to, you know, I don't know. It's a tough one because I totally agree with the artist, and I think that no way, shape, or form should people's information be ripped off. But I also think in the other case, it's a matter of if I'm a film producer and I watch a bunch of certain directors and I start to learn their style and I start to replicate their style, or I'm a musician and I start to replicate somebody's style, but I come up with my own works that are unique to me, is that illegal? If I'm being inspired by other images and other works
Yeah.
of art, I don't know. That's a big debate, but we hear it. We hear it from people. That goes back to just those what we run into is those skeptics within these companies.
Well, if they blatantly copy what you created, like match exactly the image or the video, then I would say, yeah, you definitely have a case, sue the crap out of whoever you need to sue, a crap raise. But like you said, if I was trained just on Picasso art for 3 months, consumed it, taught it, everything, and then somebody was said, hey, I want you to draw this, most likely I'll draw something Picasso inspired. It just that, but I think what people have a hard time understanding is, okay, but let's say me, I can consume 1,000, 100,000 more than a regular human. Now I can
And output the
recreate
same amount.
anything, any artist, right? I think that's where people have a hard time believing. But creativity has, I've always thought in terms of creativity, to be unique, it's very hard to be original, but I would imagine you take inspiration from 2 or 3 artists, take those inspirations and combine them your own, it becomes kind of your own. That's how like you kind of stand out. That's how it was like from a film perspective, take a little bit of this, take a little bit of this, take a little bit of this and combine it, and then you have something. But I bet you every single film producer, director has been inspired and has taken elements from things in the past, right?
And to me, it's a new tool. So you as an artist, I go back to when the iPhones came out and everybody said, oh, well, your video business is going out of business because we can all do our own videos now. I use the analogy still. We use it all the time. You and I can both go buy a steak at the grocery store.
Yes.
And if you know how to cook and I don't, you're going to get a totally different experience, even though we have the same ingredients. So hopefully people will look at this as a tool to kind of go, how can I bring my creativity to it
Yes.
and use it going forward? But
And we've already
we know we're not going to win.
And we've already seen it too. You've seen a whole bunch of AI, quote unquote, slop, and you're like, this is hot garbage. No matter how great the image is, you don't have a story, you don't know how to tell it through. And when we talked with Trevor last time, it's like there's so much more into film just than pointing a camera. There's how you do it, the lighting, like how close, the distance, the movement, all these things matter. And it's not like you can just prompt, hey, I want you to create a Quentin Tarantino film. It's not gonna,
That would be a blatant ripoff.
that would be exactly a blatant ripoff. Yes. So I think like the biggest takeaway I think from this is, and I think for businesses is, I also think make sure your skeptics are involved in the process. Maybe have them do the final checks, right? Get them actually building something, not just saying, I use it and it doesn't work, so I'm never going to use it. It's like, no. I want you to actually legitimately try it. Here's training for you. Here's how to do it. Come back. Honest to God truth, like what was the output? Like, did you actually try it versus I tried it once, I put a crappy prompt, I used a free tool, and it came back with crap half a year ago.
But don't let the tail wag the dog. Don't let the skeptics guide the direction of where you need to go with your company, because that's dangerous.
Learn more about implementing AI for your business by watching these videos here. Enjoy today's episode. Want to learn how AI can impact your company? Then please subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.